Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan here with a hot take. Little Joan has been very naughty today. Very naughty. Ruining my takes. It's taking me all day to get my videos done. I don't know why. Oh, well, I do know why. It's Joan. Go back to sleep. Anyhow. This is a hot take about, I guess this is about our court system. I've been under the my opinion about the court system is I think it's been broken for a long time. I think what would help it a great deal would be to legalize drugs and prostitution, because if you did that, it would remove an enormous burden off the court system that you could finally sort of step back and go, oh, okay, so now we got all these resources to deal with all the other things. Unfortunately, no one really shares that opinion aside from a handful of libertarians who don't have any power. Meanwhile, you have a case like this. Judge rejects Epstein Associates Ghislane Maxwell's bid for bail. They were offering a package. I don't know how you get a proposed bail package of $28.5 million to let her out. Yeah, I don't think you could really let her out. On the other hand, I don't know, keeping her in jail might be just as dangerous. Might be better to let her out. I don't know. Although she is pretty world famous at this point. She's from a famous family, so it would seem to me that if you let her out, maybe gave her an ankle bracelet, and took her passport, she'd probably, stay in country. You could even limit her to a state, I would say. But they're not. They're keeping her in prison. So the question is, how much longer before she has an accident? I think a lot of people are saying. I think it all has to do with everything sort of calming down to the point at which she is so far in the rearview mirror, nobody remembers, that something else big happens, whether it's a war or some other event, and then boom, she meets with an accident, whatever that is. I don't think it's right. I would like to see her get to trial. It's funny how, when they seem to want to do it, they could get anybody to trial quickly, but she's still languishing in jail. It's like, get her to trial. Get her to trial now. But doesn't seem to be any rush for that. And speaking of judges and trials, a judge in Fairfax, Virginia, ruled that courtroom portraits of white judges are unfair to a black defendant. This is no joke. This is the most insane thing I've ever read. A judge in Fairfax County, Virginia, ruled that a black defendant must not be tried in a courtroom with portraits of former white judges. Circuit Court Judge David Bernard is ordering the courtroom to remove these portraits during the trial. Yeah. This is how wokeness is ruining everything. And if it ruins the court system, forget it. You could just forget it. We may be headed for a total reversal of racism, I guess you'd call it. But I don't think we would get there because of the population differential and the fact that, this whole wokeness is just going to die a horrible death. But in the meantime, it does damage like this. This is totally insane. It's not unfair that pictures are on the wall of the courtroom, although he seems to think it somehow is intimidating to a defendant. That wokeness is racist. It treats people like a monolith. It assumes that just because you're black, you're intimidated by pictures of white judges. That doesn't make any sense. Then why doesn't he recuse himself for a black judge? I mean, that would at least be consistent logic. Why don't you just segregate the entire judicial system and, it's black defendant, he can only have a black jury and lawyers, and everybody has to be black, so he doesn't feel, upset. I mean, can you imagine somebody trying to argue it the other way? It'd be insane. It'd be absolutely insane. It's taking into account factors that have nothing to do with present day realities. You know, it's like, it would be like people saying, you know, historically my people were oppressed, and therefore, since you're a member of that historical community that oppressed my people hundreds of years ago, therefore you should recuse yourself. But woke politics entertains this nonsense and wastes everybody's time. This is absolute nonsense. It sets a terrible precedent. So now everybody in Virginia has got to be like, oh man, I got to remove the portraits. And, you know, you take this to its logical conclusion, you get segregation and racism. So dumb. Very, 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 very dumb. And it leads to frustration like this guy. This is the Nashville bombing, and they're proclaiming, this is from the Dan Bongino show, that his motives have been revealed. And it says in the article, as per usual, people were speculating about the bomber's motive. My first thought that was since that it went off at Christmas next to the AT&T data center, and the bomber wasn't trying to inflict mass casualties, he may have been fired before Christmas at some point by AT&T. That makes sense. As it turns out, that was in the ballpark, but wasn't quite on point. Reportedly, the FBI now believes the bomber to be Anthony Quinn Warner. Quinn's father was an AT&T employee that died of dementia at 78. Reportedly, Quinn believed 5G technology was killing people and that it caused his father's condition. News reports are describing this as a, quote, conspiracy theory. But it really isn't. Studies have been inconclusive, but there is certainly enough scientific data out there about the potential for negative effects of cell phone radiation to give people pause, even if it's not possible to definitively point to it as a significant danger. In fact, there has been a big health debate over the safety of 5G in nations like Switzerland. That should have happened here too. Allegedly, Warner believed he would be hailed as a hero in the fight against 5G for setting off a bomb. Here's a little pro tip. Unless you are a special forces operative fighting overseas, anytime you start believing that you're going to be cheered as a hero for murdering people or blowing up a building, it's probably time to check in with a psychologist. Yes. But the thing is, I think a lot of people feel like they have no recourse now. And part of that is the judicial system. So, you know, you've got, on the one hand, a black defendant who somehow gets the white judge to feel so guilty he removes the pictures of white people. And then you got a guy like this who maybe felt his father's health was somehow impacted by his job, and now maybe he didn't do anything to pursue that. Maybe he tried and it failed or whatever. But it's very expensive to hire a lawyer, and I'm sure any lawyer will tell you, you know, suing AT&T is, you know, unless you got proof. And a lot of the stuff, you know, today we have lawyers that they run commercials. If you had a relative who died of asbestos, you know, poisoning or cancer, you know, they got that's what Steve McQueen died of. You breathe in the particles and it ruins your lungs and it kills you. So there are people still suing companies to this day, trying to get, you know, some sort of recompense for a relative who's passed on for years and years and years. And that's what happens, you know. You suffer, and then later, if you try to get your money, you know, look at the 9/11 responders. Those guys are all dying, and they're not really getting any satisfaction. Not really. You know, so those guys, you know, those guys were a lot more important than, no offense, just some random guy who worked at AT&T. It may be unrelated, the AT&T thing, but who knows? Who knows? You know, they talked about cell phone radiation doing all kinds of things. And sometimes these companies know that certain things are harmful in large doses, but since there's not enough scientific evidence and they're able to sort of keep that in the back burner long enough, it doesn't matter. When enough people have, if enough people have money vested in 5G, and it's not going to make you, it's not going to give you any problems until you're like 30 years down the road, and you'll be a billionaire, and about it. To keep the phone away from your face. You're going to stop it? A lot of times you just go, nah. You'll rationalize it. Well, it can't be that bad. And by that time, they'll have a cure for cancer, and by that time, I'll have lots of money, and I'll be able to buy that cure. I don't know how the logic goes. What I do know is it's not a good sign that people don't have any recourse, because that's when they get desperate and do something crazy like this. So people need some kind of recourse. So at least if this guy had gotten a day in court and they said, well, there maybe is some evidence, not a lot of evidence, or AT&T settled with them and said, well, we're sorry, we didn't know. He wouldn't have done what he did, allegedly. But yeah, the judicial system in the world has always favored the rich and favored the powerful, and we need to really address that, because I think in the future, you think it's bad having an election get rigged. How bad will it be if they start rigging courtrooms? Then you'll see some real problems. Then you're talking, that's it. If you can't, and really the entire Trump election is about that. If Trump and his followers can't get recourse, it's not going to be good.